Hello makers and welcome back to the studio. Now this time around I want to share with you a common problem if you're working with larger collages, and that is sometimes the materials you have to work with aren't big enough. So for example, if I were to go out to my favorite art store and pick up some media like paper to work with, oftentimes the content that I want, the colored paper that I like, which is a cardstock, only is available in 8.5 by 11 sheets. Now, if I'm working on smaller pieces, that might work out fine for me. I can cut a lot of different colors out of here. And in certain instances, I can also work with the larger format color books, if you can still find them. They're still out there, a little bit more challenging, but the simple reality is that these are 12 inches by 12 inches, which gives us an awful lot more real estate if we're trying to cut out a solid one piece of paper that we can use in a project. But sometimes our needs go even beyond this. So the challenge that we want to solve today is if I have a bigger piece of artwork that I'm working on and I want to have some sort of a piece of colored paper to fill that in, how do I get that? Where do I buy this? And the answer is you don't need to. You can make your own. So what I want to do is show you today how we can make our own larger pieces of colored paper for our future collage projects or for anything else for that matter. So I'm starting with, I'm starting with a former project. There's this piece of paper has gone through some challenges. It's 18 by 24 inches. You probably can't see it very well, but there's some dirt, there's some scuff marks in here. Got sandwiched between some other things while they're being transported, and yeah, it's kind of a hot mess. So if I were to say I want to come and create a piece of art using this piece of paper, I'd have to start with the fact that it's kind of dirty, and I probably would bypass that. But you know what? It's a perfect candidate for us to make our own colored paper. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, I'm going to start with my heavily patented cottage cheese cover here. By the way, no, all kidding aside, it has these great little ridges on the inside, which is perfect for cleaning your brush from time to time. So yeah, it's a good candidate. Also, I can put paint in this when I'm done. I can just toss it. I don't feel bad about that. It's already had a little bit of a second life. Now, I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can put the paint on the paper to get the results you're looking for. One, I'm going to use this old-fashioned, again, disposable foam brush. And the reason I'm using this is because this allows me to paint without leaving a lot of brush marks. Well, I actually prefer using a bristled brush for a lot of my work. It also leaves texture behind. And what I'm trying to get here is the smoothest texture possible so that, again, it's not going to look like it's been a painted piece of paper. It's going to look like a large piece of painted paper. So I have a couple of colors I'm going to work with here. I have an acrylic paint that I'm working with here. It's a Dilly Pickle. It's a satin finish. I'm going to give this a quick shake just so I can get this stirred up a little bit. Okay, now let's get our paint. I'm going to get some paint spread into my little paint palette here. There we go. I'll get some here to start. I don't want to necessarily have a lot of paint that gets wasted, so I'll see what happens. And again, foam brush. You can saturate this pretty well. And we're just going to come in here. We're going to start getting some laid down. So get that laid down on your paper. Not a hard thing. Anybody of any skill level can probably figure out how to smear some paint onto some paper. And we're just going to go for as full coverage as we can. And again, we have a lot of real estate to cover. I can get right up to the edges of my paper if that's what I want to be able to do here. And another nice thing about using a color like this, truthfully, if I were to go out to an arts and crafts store or supply store of some sort and say, I'm looking for kind of a piece of paper that's a dill green color, I'm probably going to come up short. There's probably not going to be a lot of opportunity for a color like this in a commercial product. So this works out pretty well for my needs if this is a specific color that I'm looking to work with. And it turns out right now it is. So let's get that in there. And again, we might need to put some more paint on here to work with. And I think for this, I'm just going to go for about half the sheet of this paper. I'll show you on the other half how we might put the paint down in a slightly different technique. So let me get a little bit more green. And actually, I'm going to be brave and just pour it straight on the paper this time. And again, it's more about getting good coverage of our color than it is anything else right now. And let me just kind of smear back the other way. And just going to fill in as much of the white as I can right now. There we go. And all right, so like I said, I'm going to do about half this sheet of paper. Now, again, getting Getting paint on myself, it's one of the things I'm really good at. I'm a master in that part of the painting process. I'm going to come back across my piece here, and I'm going to try to smooth out my current brush lines the best I can. So let's just make sure that we do this. I want to minimize the texture that's going to show up on this. It's already starting to dry, which means I have to work a little fast to get everything in the way I want it. All right, not terrible at all. All right, and of course what this means now that with this large area, if I wanted to use this, it's 18 inches almost, about 17 inches wide. And again, I have control over how big a sheet of paper I can control. I can make this entire 18 by 24 inch this color and cut out of that if that's what I wanted to do. What I'm going to probably need to do in most cases, depends on the paint you're using. This particular color has pretty good coverage, but there's a little bit of translucency in here. And in all reality, I'm going to have to give this a few minutes to dry, and then I'm going to have to hit it with a different, another layer of the color. So what I'm going to do, because I know watching somebody paint on a piece of paper and wait for it to dry is the most fun you can probably have. I'm going to bypass that for you though, and I'm going to come back when this is fully covered and dried, and then I'll show you what the next step is.
3 days later.
All right, so it's taken about 10 minutes or so to get a couple layers down here, but as you can see, we got much better coverage of the color. That was our objective. And again, one of the nice things about doing this is you can also do it to whatever your standards are, right? I might want to show a little bit of texture in my paper to make it a little bit more interesting. I might even want to mix some colors together, something I would never be able to buy off a shelf. I can create something that's really unique to the project that I'm working on. All right, so I like this color. Still got a little bit of drying to do, but let's work on another color next to it. I'm going to put in some zesty orange here, and I'm going to show you a different methodology for getting the paint down, and something that works pretty well. I'm going to be a little braver this time, and I'm going to lay down some paint in the middle of my paper. There we go. That should be plenty, at least for the first coat. And then what I want to do is I want to come over here, once I wipe my fingers off again, paint magnets that they are, and I'm going to go for, a paint roller. And the nice thing about the different paint rollers, there are different types. They have different naps, textures on the roller. If you're looking for any kind of texture, if I want a smooth texture, I have a couple different options. Some of these are very smooth. Some of them are a little bit thicker. And play around with what works for you. I'm going to just use this roller here right now to just try to get some of the orange down where I want it to be. And again, you may end up with a fair amount of paint sticking to the roller, so it depends on what you want to be able to do here. Let me get some more of that orange down. But you can start to see that you get a very thick coverage of this almost immediately. And again, there's a little bit more paint waste here, if we're being honest, because it is ending up on the roller as much as anything else, but let's see if we can make it to our advantage. And again, we might get a really nice effect depending on what we're looking for here. That is not so terrible. And again, I might have to put a couple different coats in here just to get the coverage I want. And it looks like I've got something in here. It might be an insect. I don't know. Not what I was hoping to put on here, but you know what? I've been able to jump in there and correct it pretty quickly. All right, and get some more paint down here. And we might actually, I don't know, maybe there's a way we get this all in one coat. That would be sweet too. All right, and again, I'm gonna do what I can to smooth things out a little bit here. I mean, who knows? In a modern contemporary art museum, what I'm painting right now, the dilly green and the orange next to each other as squares, that could be big money. That could be big money. Right there. Yes, that's right. A Spidergram original made for you with this very, very special painting apparatus. That's right. Please, kids, don't try this at home. I am a professional. So are you. So are you. You can easily do this. All right. Now, one of the things I'm noticing, Justin, you may not be able to see is, I remember I talked about how there's some schmutz here. There's some dirt that's in here from just before. And I'm covering it up a little bit. It's not covering up as much as I want. So you know what? It's going to require a second coat of the orange to cover up some of the imperfections. So we're going to give it a couple minutes. Again, it's going to seem like magic for you, but come on back and we'll see what this looks like with another coat of paint on it.
Approximately 10 hours later.
And just like that, through the magic of video editing, we have both of our colors here. They're mostly dry. By the way, I used the hairdryer trick on the orange here. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link it to the end of this one so you can see another art hack that can really help you out and save you some time. So we have our different colors. Now, you may not be able to tell from the camera, but the green is a very smooth, very solid. This one actually has a little bit more texture in it because of the nap on the roller. And again, you might use that in a number of different ways. Maybe there's a secondary color you want to be able to put on here and create more of a textured effect, that kind of thing. So being able to create your own colored paper is not limited to just solid blocks of color. You can really create things that are a lot more textured. And then when you use them in future projects and cut those up for collages or anything else you're working on, you get to take those effects with you. And we will do that. I'm going to save this for a future project that we'll work on together, and we'll be able to make some larger colors and larger pieces using the elements that we have here. But I wanted to share quickly with you today how to do this. Again, not incredibly difficult to do. Really, the hardest part is determining what colors and what kind of textures you want to be able to use and have those available for future projects. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Thanks again for spending time with us. We always appreciate it. And if you want to be able to catch more of these different tips as they come up, please feel free to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and we'll let you know whenever anything new drops. That's all I have for you today. This is Spider. Thanks so much for dropping by, and I'll see you next time.